Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. Sunday morning, Memorial Day weekend. Well, so many things going on in the world, and today we have a good friend with us. We have Dr. Bill Parker. He is a retired U.S. naval officer. He had a career served as chief of staff for U.S. Navy operations or forces, and also an expert in national security. Good morning, Dr. Parker. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Catsimatidis. Great to be back on your show again. I'm doing great.
Tell me, there's so many things going on in the world today. Where should we start? Should we start at that plane being forced down in Belarus?
Sure, that's as good of any, and there's certainly a lot going on in the world, as you say. Belarus. Okay, so interesting country to start out with. Landlocked country, as you well know. Has 5 countries around it: Ukraine, Russia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. It's been around for a while. It's a little bigger than the state of Georgia, size-wise, and it's got about 9.5 million people there. The really interesting thing, though, in addition to its leader, is the fact that when Chernobyl blew now a couple decades ago, about 70% of Chernobyl's radiation hovered over top of Belarus for quite a while. And so they lost about a fifth of their land that still today is not able to grow anything because of the radiation. So that's pretty interesting. You know, the country itself started in 1990. They declared their sovereignty. 91, they declared their independence. In 94, we have our friend there, Alexander Lukashenko, who was elected president, and he remains president today. And many people say it's the only legitimate election that's ever been held in Belarus. And you know how close they are to the Russians.
And I understand that they took the reporter back, and now there's concern that the reporter is not going to make it to Christmas, let's say. Well,
you know, this is really sad. First of all, you've got Russia and Belarus who signed their treaty for greater cooperation. So they're a union state between the two of them now. This is certainly an authoritarian government, and they're run that way for a very long time. The flight itself was out of Athens going to Lithuania. About 170 passengers on board. It's intercepted by a MiG-29 that supposedly was directed by President Lukashenko to intercept it and bring it back to Minsk, the capital. They bring it back, and lo and behold, Roman Protasevich is on board. This is a 26-year-old kid who's been doing anti-Lukashenko reporting for quite a while, and he's been taken into custody, supposedly by a combination of KGB and security forces from Lukashenko's regime.
Okay, Memorial Day weekend. What's the next subject we should talk about?
Well, there's so many of them. First of all, just to all of those that we should remember this weekend coming up. Our hearts and appreciation should be out for all of those that have served and paid the ultimate sacrifice. In addition, I think maybe talking about Korea a little bit. Interesting conversation this week with Moon and Biden. All reports are that it was calm and quiet. And that the relationship is still very strong between the two countries. Although I did hear some very interesting terms being used, like the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That's a North Korean term. It's not a South Korean term. South Korea would talk more about the denuclearization of North Korea. So that's an interesting statement. Also, the fact that the guidance that's in place or was in place prior to saying that South Korea could not have weapons that went more than 800 kilometers, basically keeping them inside of North Korean territory, is now null and void. And so what that means is that they can now have weapon systems in their country. They can reach China, they can reach Russia, they can reach Japan, can reach beyond North Korea. And I think that is significant. But, it was interesting, and I think overall a positive conversation. It is interesting how U.S. politics played into this because there were offers by South Korea to bring two major companies to the United States, one into Georgia and one into Texas. And I don't think those two states were by happenstance. And so that's pretty interesting. They picked those two states. And what South Korea wants out of this is more immunizations. As you know, during the Trump administration, they provided about 500,000 vaccinations to the South Korean military. But South Korea is hurting as far as getting vaccines.
Wuhan, the other big controversial thing going on the last few weeks. Are we ever going to find out the truth?
Well, I think we will. And you know, you and I had a conversation in the first weeks of COVID last year where the two of us believe that when you looked at it from an epidemiological standpoint, because of the rapid infection rate and the high mortality rate, that it was likely not man-made or naturally occurring. And in fact, this was more than likely something that came out of a lab of some sort. That seems to be playing out now. So I think we will eventually hear. I do not think that the World Health Organization is being completely open about their reporting. The Chinese reporting and the World Health Organization have been consistently vague in their reporting of what was happening in China during that time, and I hope that gets cleared up. But from an epidemiological standpoint, I do think we will eventually prove that this came from a laboratory in Wuhan or somewhere very close to that.
Putin and Biden, are they going to have a meeting, and can we handle it?
I think they will have a meeting. I think that President Biden has made it very clear that any meetings that he has, whether it's with Kim Jong-un in the future or any others, that he first wants them teed up by national security advisors, secretaries of state. So I could see Tony Blinken and Lavrov having maybe several conversations prior to, and that this final meeting with Putin and Biden will be more a summary of what's already been discussed as opposed to a face-to-face starting point. So I think it'll be very different than what you would see under a Trump administration or a Bush administration. But I do think it will happen.
Dr. Bill Parker, I want to say thank you from all Americans for everything you've done for America during your career in the Navy. And God bless you and God bless America.
Thank you, sir, and thanks for all you do.
This is the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back.